So let's talk statistics first. By the numbers, we have 1 in 10 individuals, okay, and these are people over the age of 65, are affected with Alzheimer's specifically. So 1 in 10 over the age of 65. We've got Alzheimer's being the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. So it's up there. It's in the top 10. We've got 5.8 million Americans who live with Alzheimer's daily, and we have 20, which is the number of years you could have the disease before symptoms appear. As I said, it doesn't just start. You don't just walk into Alzheimer's. You don't walk into dementia. It's a slow deterioration and progression of your brain, your cognitive computing power, your memory, etc. And we also know that two-thirds number of Alzheimer's patients are women, right? So of the 5.8 million, 66% of those are females. And so if you're female, again, but pay particular attention. We're going to dive into some of the kind of early things that can happen. These are some of the symptoms, but again, think of these as not as end stage necessarily symptoms. These can come along any path. They don't all have to happen at once. You can start with a few of these. You can start with only one of these, and they generally are progressive. So maybe you're taking care of your parents. Maybe you've got folks in your life that are manifesting some of these symptoms, and you've got some concerns that they may be developing dementia. It's very important that you understand that if you're seeing these early, it's very important for early detection so that you can do diet and lifestyle change fast. Now, I recommend starting this now, but sometimes people won't change until the level of their illness is greater than their desire for change. But early detection is critical, because if you wait until somebody is severely demented, no amount of diet, no amount of lifestyle change are going to correct that. And we've seen that be the case time and time again. Clinically speaking, people with late stage dementia, generally you don't add vitamin C or vitamin B1 and get their memory back. You don't put them on a gluten-free diet and get their memory back. So early detection is very, very key. So the earlier onset you see these symptoms developing, whether it's you or somebody you care about, take prompt action immediately, because the longer you wait, the harder it is to get these things to reverse. Remember, Alzheimer's affects neurological tissue, your brain, and the brain is one of the slowest to heal. And so it already takes a little bit longer to respond. So if you let 5, 10, 15 plus more years of damage go on, it's a lot harder to reverse that once you allow that to happen. But symptoms, simply put, number one, memory loss. So if you struggle, and this is really important, if you find yourself forgetting simple things throughout the course of your day, this is something you definitely want to take fast action on. Difficulty with words. So if you find yourself struggling with which words mean what, or with pulling the right word to your lips, you can think of it in your brain, but you can't get it to your lips. Difficulty with visual and spatial abilities, getting lost while driving, not understanding where you're at or why you're there. Like these are hallmark, very, very aggressive symptoms here. Difficulty with reasoning or problem solving. One of the things that we see, especially in the elderly, is not even so much that they lose their capacity at memory, but it's they lose their capacity to reason. They become more and more challenging to reason with. Difficulty planning and organizing. You have to repeat things over and over and over again. Again, you can see all these kind of tie into each other, right? But this is one. Memory loss, trouble planning and organizing when you can't remember things. Difficulty with coordinating your motor functions or coordination. So this is one a lot of people overlook because it affects you physically and not so much mentally. But if you find yourself becoming more and more clumsy, this is a hallmark that you have some neurodegeneration that could be occurring. And so you might want to think about dementia. Confusion and disorientation. Personality and major personality and mood swings, and this is really just like the picture shows, a smiley face and a happy face. This could be a person could be very content and very happy, and then it's like a light switch. All of a sudden, they're angry and they're lashing out, almost like a bipolar type of swing. This is not uncommon to see in somebody who suffers with dementia. We can also see paranoia, people that become overly cautious and overly concerned, or basically paranoid, right, about the day-to-day. And then hallucinations as well can also occur. So these are all very common symptoms. Again, the more of them that you have, the worse off that you are. So the best thing to do is at the earliest onset of any of these things is you take immediate and quick action. Again, early detection is key. If you don't catch it early, you know, you're not going to catch it early enough, and you might not be able to reverse it. So one of the questions I get asked a lot, you know, with my expertise in gluten, is gluten associated with dementia? And here's what we know about gluten. So the simple answer is yes, right? So gluten is definitely linked. It's a neurotoxin. And there are a number of studies that show this, that gluten exposure causes antibodies against the brain tissue. So I've actually seen this. We've measured it in people where, again, gluten exposure leads to antibodies versus the brain, right, versus neural tissue. So this leads to then subsequent inflammation and damage in the brain, and that can affect the cortex and other areas of the brain that are important for memory. And so we know gluten as a neurotoxin can definitely contribute to this, but there are other things that we know, and I want to kind of pull up some research to show you a little bit more in depth about what we understand about gluten. So this study here, published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease Reports, Volume 3, on two different topics. One is the topic of non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which I think it's important to delineate, because many of you, you know, you may have celiac disease and you think, well, or many of you don't have celiac disease, so you don't think gluten plays a role. But again, this is non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So what you see, non-celiac gluten sensitivity may lead to brain neuroinflammation, and AD is Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis. Pathogenesis is just a fancy way of saying disease creation, right? So brain inflammation caused by, again, antibodies against the nervous system. You can come up here and you can see provoking Alzheimer's disease pathology by initiating an overzealous immune system response following gluten ingestion, which leads to a chronic state of inflammation. Anytime we have chronic inflammation, that can pose a threat or a problem. So the first studies of non-celiac gluten sensitivity indicated that only the innate immune system was involved in its pathogenesis, but recent studies detect the presence of anti-gluten antibodies that may indicate the involvement of adaptive immunity. In other words, it's not just celiac disease. There are two prongs to the immune system, and both of these can increase chronic inflammation associated with neurological inflammation. We also know in celiac disease, you can see individuals with celiac disease display increased small intestinal permeability. And this is true also of non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So leaky gut, if you will, it causes leaky gut. As a consequence, autoimmune disease sets in. Now, the bacteria and fungi that naturally colonize the digestive tract secrete different types of compounds. They can secrete amyloids. And if you've ever heard that term amyloid, it's because amyloid plaques are something that are found when we autopsy patients that have passed or died as a result of dementia. We find amyloid plaquing in their brain. So again, these bacteria and fungi colonize the digestive tract, secrete amyloids, lipopolysaccharides, or particular types of proteins, and other microbial exudates from their outer membranes. And under conditions of increased intestinal permeability, these microbial amyloids and lipopolysaccharides may escape from the digestive tract and induce the immune system to increase the secretion of pro-inflammatory chemicals. Thus, increased intestinal permeability in celiac disease may contribute to the onset of chronic peripheral inflammatory state and the pathogenesis of Alzheimer's disease. Now, this is one study review, but I'm gonna pull up this other one that oops, where'd it go? We're going to pull this other one up because I think it's important to look at this one as well. So this was published in Frontiers in Neurology. And so what you're looking at here is, on the left-hand side, healthy central nervous system function, healthy gut function, right? There's this correlation between the two. But when we develop increased gut permeability or leaky gut, we get something called dysbiosis, which is the abnormal growth of bacteria and fungi and byproducts of those bacteria and fungi. It leads to altered levels of LPS. That's that term I was using earlier, that lipopolysaccharide. Inflammatory cells enter mediators and alterations in brain function. So an abnormal functioning central nervous system. So the connection is not new. We've known this. Your gut is part of your brain. Your gut and your brain, you really can't separate them out. I know in medicine today, we try to look at everything as one organ or one system and not looking at them as they interact or relate to each other. And that's part of the problem in medicine, is that the fields of specialty, make doctors put on these blinders, right? All I can see is the GI tract. All I can see is the brain. All I can see is the liver. And that's not how the body works. The body works holistically in conjunction with the systems in it. And so again, the gut affects the brain in that way. That leaky brain, or that leaky gut, leads to inflammation of the brain and subsequently leaky brain. We also know that gluten, so these are all gluten-induced issues, because gluten causes an abnormal microbiome. Gluten causes leaky gut, allowing for those microbial organisms to penetrate into the bloodstream and traverse into the central nervous system. But we also know that gluten causes a severity of vitamin and mineral deficiencies, right? So we've got malnutrition caused as a result of gluten-induced gastrointestinal damage. When your gut's damaged, it can't absorb and digest the nutrients from the food that you eat. And we know several vitamin and mineral deficiencies have been linked to a decline in the way the brain is supposed to function. And we'll talk in specificity about some of those. But I want to highlight this particular review published in the journal Nutrients. So we got a diet rich in antioxidant vitamins can improve the cognitive function of patients. Thanks to an adequate intake of B vitamins, homocysteine levels are reduced, we'll talk about that in a minute, which indirectly protects against the development of the disease. A properly balanced diet, as well as the use of appropriate supplementation, can contribute to improving the clinical condition of patients with Alzheimer's disease. Again, I'm going to emphasize early intervention, because if you catch this late, it doesn't matter how many vitamins you want to pop, it ain't going to fix this problem if you catch it too late. Now, one of the things that this review mentions is a compound called homocysteine. Now, homocysteine, everybody makes it. It's normal, natural, and you've probably heard me talk about it. I've talked about it a number of times, but homocysteine is a nerve toxin in high amounts. Now, homocysteine, we all make it. It's normal. It's not normal amounts that create problems or damage to the nerves, but it's elevated homocysteine. So increases in homocysteine act or behave as a nerve toxin, damaging the nervous system, damaging tissues in the brain. This is actually this is one of the reasons why it's been linked to dementia, Alzheimer's, but also it's been linked to neuropathies, because it doesn't just damage the brain, it can damage the peripheral nervous system as well, leading to neuropathy. So we can get elevations in homocysteine, can become a nerve toxin. Now, how do you regulate homocysteine? This is done with B vitamins. And so a lot of people with gluten issues have B vitamin deficiency, particularly vitamin B12, folate, vitamin B6, and vitamin B2. These 4 B vitamins play a major role in the proper metabolism of this chemical homocysteine. Now, the reason I spend any time at all on this is because if you're trying to be preventative, which the best way to be about your health is don't wait for disease, be preventative, right? Don't wait for the disease, be preventative, take action before it. But this is a test. You can ask your doctor to measure your homocysteine level. Okay, your homocysteine level can be measured. It's a simple blood test. So if you come back and your levels are higher than 9, you've probably got an issue where you're damaging your nerves slowly over time. If your levels come back over 15, you've got a big issue. If your levels come back over 20, you've got a major issue that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. So again, how do we address elevations in homocysteine? There's only one way to lower it, and that's through B vitamins. It's because the B vitamins naturally help your body metabolize homocysteine into another chemical substrate, very important, called methionine. And why is this important? Why do we need to do this? Because methionine is a precursor to your body's ability to make new DNA and new RNA, but also to produce proteins, protein synthesis. So very important that you're getting this conversion, because this is what is this? This is how we heal and repair. If you can't make new DNA, new RNA, if you can't adequately produce new proteins, it's very, very difficult for your body to heal and repair, no matter what the disease, no matter what the condition. So, very, very important. Homocysteine, simple to measure, simple to ask, simple test to ask your doctor for. If yours levels comes back abnormally high, you want to consider B vitamin supplementation. These 4 are the main ones. We actually have something called, it's a formula for this to support healthy homocysteine, but it's called Ultra SAMI. And so it has a number of these B vitamins and ingredients that help to, again, get that homocysteine level in a healthy range. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.